Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar on digital trends in 2020. Today, I'm your host, Thomas. I'm a solution consultant here at SimilarWeb, and my usual job is to help companies, to help world's largest brands and agencies to use digital data to make better decisions. And what we're going to look at today, as I mentioned, is digital trends. And in general, we try to do this every year. But as you can imagine, this year is very different, and it's way more important to do this kind of exercise this year than it was in 2019. We've done a year review in last year, and not a lot has changed. But this year, so many companies were finding themselves in the middle of nowhere without context, what is happening in the industry, what's happening in the world in digital, and understanding that this kind of data is so much more important now and powerful to make better decisions and to perform on a very high level. So what we're going to look at today is really understanding the overall landscape. Then we're going to look at a couple of categories for the US. And let me go to the next slide. And shortly, what I want to also mention is that one of the reasons we do these things live and is for you to ask questions, because we want to give you an ability to ask questions so we can answer them at the end as well. So please, you can find the question box somewhere on the right side and just click on it and please ask us questions, because we're going to leave about 20 to 15 minutes at the end to actually answer your questions. The data is really all based from SimilarWeb platform, so you can all do this research on your own as well and dig deeper into every single category. We're going to look at main categories, the top websites, but you can do it a lot more deeper and more granular just on our platform. And it's also quite simple. If you find something that you cannot get data from, please talk to your account manager or sales manager, and they can show you where in the platform you can find this and how you can get similar data as well. So let's go into the main part in general trends. And what we're going to start with is the overall traffic for top 100 websites. And why I think this is important is really showing you the opportunity and how it changed in 2020. What we've seen, really, to understand what's happening, we have to look maybe a couple of years ago. And in 2018, we've seen an 8% growth in traffic, which was a normal growth in overall traffic to top 100 websites. And we see more people coming into the digital, using their phones, the desktop more and more to access websites and companies online. And it was a normal growth, it was 8%. In 2019, we've seen a bigger increase of 10%. So it already was about 25% faster growth than 2018. And we thought that will be maybe slowing down in future. And that was a general prediction in general. But what we've seen in 2020, partially due to COVID and all the lockdowns, is actually accelerating trend in traffic. So here on the right side, you can see the traffic change on the overall year and period over period. So in 2020, we've seen 13.4% increase in traffic to top 100 websites. So this really shows you two things, is that one thing is a lot more people logging in, but as a company, in many industries, you have a lot more demand. So even though we've seen decline in some categories, overall, we see so many more people actually using the websites, going online, shopping online, buying groceries, doing Zoom calls, actually accessing a lot more online websites. While some categories have been declined, but overall, the growth was tremendous. And this is one of the things I really want to nail in through this presentation, is that for 2020, we've seen the companies that succeeded were not the ones that were playing cautiously and just lowering their budgets and just trying to be as cash flow positive as possible during that year, but it's actually people who were taking the opportunity to get that demand in. Like one of the examples was, I think it was in the French market, we've done analysis for groceries, and the grocery chain that was, I think, the third largest one, it was the third largest one, it just overtook the first one because they were bold enough to increase their paid search, increase their paid traffic, and actually get that extra market share during that year to then actually contain that market share. Because what you have this is not just growth of traffic from existing customers, is a lot of people who would not do something online normally actually getting online to do those normal things that they wouldn't do. So what you're getting here is a new market share, new customers in many industries. So you have an opportunity to increase that market share and then keep it throughout the normal years in the future. And as you can see, here is more of a trended view year over year. And what we can see increase is, of course, in May, July, we can see the little drop during summer, and then again increase till October. And you can see how big the gap was right here in January. So year over year growth is tremendous. And then the interesting thing was in 2018 and 2019 is that in January 2019, we had big spike, while in other years we have quite a normal decline during January, as it usually is a slow time. So we understood that there is a bigger demand in general for top websites in digital. Let's see more in detail what happens, which websites, and maybe which device actually driving that traffic. So one of the things as agencies and our brands are looking for is which devices really people are using to access the website. And there was a huge trend for, I think, last 3 or 4 years where we've seen mobile traffic skyrocket. And it actually was overtaking desktop just in 2019. As you can see, it was the first time mobile overtook it, and it was growing really, really fast for the last 3 years. But we've seen the reversal to this trend in 2020. And now the growth of traffic that we've seen, this tremendous growth, was not really driven just by mobile. And actually, desktop grew even more year over year in percentage terms than mobile traffic. So as one of the trends that really changed is that people started accessing a lot more of websites through desktop. So even though we still see the trend of mobile traffic growing, we can see that when people have the choice to access it through desktop or mobile, they choose desktop because they stay at home and they have choice of both. They're not on the run to a store, or they're not going to work. They actually can do everything from desktop. And you should not forget to optimize your website for desktop as well. As we've seen Google putting mobile indexing for mobile first, or web pages, everything is going mobile focused. You start building web pages, focus on mobile, and then going to desktop. But now we can also see that it's not really that mobile overtook significantly in 2020, because what was predicted is that this growth would stay. So we've seen a decline in 2019 in desktop right here. So what we expected really and predicted to happen in 2020 is that desktop would decline even more, maybe to this level, and mobile grow even more, maybe to this. So then you would clearly see, okay, mobile is definitely dominating, especially in most of the big categories. So how we can do that on a better level. And now we see that it's really getting like a step back, and desktop is still as important. So you should not put all your eggs in one basket for mobile, but actually understand that desktop is still here to stay. And most people, when they have a choice, will still use desktop to accessing a lot of the websites and a lot of services online. For the next stage, it's an interesting trend really in general, I think. And it's not only a trend in web behavior, but I think a psychological trend for people right now. And it's actually attention span. And what we're looking at here in terms of data is seconds, and how many seconds on average people stay on websites for top 100 websites. And what we've seen in general in the last 3 years already, and now the 4th year as well, is that attention span is declining. So people are spending less and less time on the websites right now. So it makes it really important that when you have a visitor, you communicate it very clearly what your brand is about, what your website and service is providing, because they're not spending a lot of time looking through stuff. They expect to be served the main information really fast, look at it and leave. It's the same thing for branding and campaign management. It has to be clear. And even though like maintaining the emotional connection and having a lot of factors to campaign performance, like the clarity is still very important and it's getting more important with time. So we've seen a general decline in attention span. So this is something I would look even for your category and your website as well. Is it also the case? Maybe for some categories, it's probably a bigger decline. So it's something to look at and definitely understand that attention span are decreasing. So, and look at it specifically for your category as well and see on which side of that performance are you? Actually above or below average? Should you improve your visit duration, or is it declining with the rest of the category? And then decide, should you actually improve the performance on your websites on that side as well? So the next stage we're going to go to is, of course, for agencies and a lot of branding people, marketing is where people spend a lot of their time. And now, of course, most of the people spend time on social media and streaming services. I myself, I'm not on a lot of social media websites because it's difficult to control how much time you actually spend on them. So I'm trying to reducing, but you can imagine how many people spend so much time on them. So this is really one of the main places you can find your customers and you can advertise to them. And this is why it's really important to see who's winning and who's actually growing in that time. And then streaming services, of course, it's very important to know who is winning in that category because that category is so important. So we're going to look at just shortly at social media websites. And the most interesting trend here was that TikTok popularity is exploding. And it's not just growth in general, but it's such a spectacular growth, which we've seen in other countries a couple of years ago. And I've done a similar analysis in other countries where we've seen this increase in TikTok usage, but it was nothing like this. Like now it's happening in the last year. And from this data, we're looking at monthly app downloads. And here you see TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter as the main competitors. So, and it's very interesting to see that also Snapchat is here, who had amazing Q4 performance, and its stock just went up because of them showing really good performance during last year. They're able to get a lot more users back, even though Instagram is copying so much of their stuff. So, but that, of course, the big story is TikTok. And that's something I'm noticing in my life. So many more people actually using it and understanding how big it is. I have some friends that became influencers on TikTok by a mistake. They just started doing videos and they have 5 to 7 to 12 million audiences on there by just doing normal, funny, everyday lifestyle things. And it's crazy how much audience there is and how fast it's growing. And why is this important to so many companies and agencies? Is it because it's now so new. And as marketers, you all know that when it's new, it's cheaper. It's easier to get return on investment. And if you hack how to do Instagram advertising, which is TikTok advertising, which is not easy to do, finding influencers, getting directed campaigns, getting the audience, there are many options there through going through agencies or the influencer platforms, or going to specific influencers and doing on your own. There, you can get so much more for your money than you would do in Facebook or Instagram advertising, and potentially a high return investment. But then you have to be able to actually track it. So it's not easy to do, but this is where you'll see a much more demand from your clients and from your marketing teams to actually do a better performance. And another interesting point here is where it's actually stealing the market share from. And while we see TikTok growing, the biggest decline that we can notice is Facebook. During the same time TikTok is actually growing, Facebook is in a significant decline. So a lot of you are actually running a lot of Facebook campaigns. So if the Facebook is in decline while TikTok is increasing, that's a great data point for you to go to your customers and actually show them, like, this is the next big thing. We need to allocate some budget to first create campaigns, create structure, create teams around it, and then also advertising and find the best ways to do it and actually monetize on this new trend. And you can actually show them that this is not a small niche player anymore, but it's growing so fast and it's taking out so many users from Facebook. Another important thing, of course, is here that Instagram. So why Facebook has been relevant for so long, even though in general it's been in declines, because they have Instagram and WhatsApp. But we see that TikTok is actually reducing the downloads for Instagram during the same time, who was the leader before. But it's the first time Instagram is not actually leading, and in downloads, Snapchat and TikTok are overtaking it. In terms of Snapchat, I probably would not see this as a very long-term trend. And from the increase, it's not really a huge increase compared to last year, but TikTok is definitely blowing up and something every single company and agency should look into. In the next slide, what we're going to look at is battle of two giants, and it's two streaming giants, and it's app downloads for Netflix and Prime Video. So what is interesting here is how they started the year at a very similar point. And Netflix and Prime Video actually had the same amount of app downloads in February 2020 and January. But with COVID actually getting in, we see that Prime Video is increasing its difference and its lead over Netflix over time. So we see an increase in Netflix during December, maybe because of the Christmas movie collection, and maybe more people signing up and downloading Netflix during that time, which is interesting that it's not as many things on Prime, which I'm a Prime user and I couldn't actually find many good Christmas movies. Maybe that's why. But the general trend is very clear that Prime Video is increasing its share over Netflix in general. And I've actually been thinking quite a long time on this chart because I couldn't figure out why. And then it became very clear to me is that Amazon had such a huge increase in demand and so many Prime users in general that this is what helps Prime Video getting a lot more users. Because if you sign up to Prime Amazon account, you get access to Amazon Prime Video. And this is what in my estimation really is pushing Prime Video to that next level. It's not that people are really going to just download Prime Video, but they're getting a lot more shoppers in Amazon, a lot more users there and Prime users. So that's what's increasing users of Prime Video. And this is such a big benefit of them actually having Amazon. So the next category is probably one of the most interesting to a lot of our customers is shopping. So shopping and e-commerce sites are a huge portfolio for many agencies, and it's probably one of the most difficult places to get data on. So on retailers, on their performance, if you're selling a brand, should you have an increase in the overall performance? What kind of retail sites are growing? Because as a brand, you don't have that information. As a retailer, you cannot get information for all the industry, and it's very crucial to make the best marketing decisions if you have that information and context for the whole industry. And shopping is huge. So those trends in shopping online in 2020, because it was exploding in demand, it's very important to know how much it is increasing. So for the first slide, we'll look at overall traffic. So what we're seeing here is traffic to the shopping category. And dark blue is our desktop traffic, and light blue is mobile traffic. And we see general increase in both of them. And if you split it year by year, we see a 20% increase in traffic to shopping category in general in just 2020. And this is a huge increase. We've seen very average single digit increases year over year, and it was maybe 1-2%. The online shopping was big, but it was already got big for quite a while. But 2020 accelerated this growth so much. So this 20% increase is actually incredible, really, in perspective. So, and in just November was 32% higher year over year. So especially during the top season of shopping where you have the most conversions, the most of the sales, been 32% larger. And this is something that I've done a webinar already in just November and October when we tried to predict, will it be higher or lower? Because you have two forces really fighting for it. One thing is, of course, there's a lot more demand for online because people cannot shop offline as easily. But on the other side, so many people lost their jobs and don't have money to spend really shopping. So would we really see an increase? And here we actually see that increase was huge, even though a lot of people lost their job and don't have so much money to spend, but they still have to spend it somewhere, even though it might be on normal things or something they were waiting for, because that's one of the times they have discounts and they maybe are feeling that they can spend some money right now. So the increase is 32% year over year in just November alone. So we can also look at the shopping category performance by country, which is very easy to do in our platform as well. And from here, it's looking at traffic to shopping category for every single country. For top countries right now, I didn't pick the small ones, just the main ones. And we can see how it started and who increased the most during the every single month. So it's changed year over year for every single month. And the leaders were United Kingdom. They had the largest increase in shopping overall year over year for January. Then we see United States and Germany were the top ones. We see Japan and Russia as well. Interestingly enough, China has seen a decline in this traffic. So it's possible that during COVID, they didn't see as much of the increase because they had increased very early in the beginning. It was almost 20% growth. And then because their lockdowns finished so early, they've seen a general decline afterwards in January. So it's probably just very normal right now because of the strict lockdowns in the beginning and the ability to actually open everything up at the end. But you see some countries that were mostly affected by COVID have the biggest increase in there. And this is where we're looking just at the shopping category, but you can do this analysis for really any category and understand how your country or different markets are performing and where you potentially want to put more investment in, or actually a new market to look into actually getting in. And we can also look at one of the most interesting things for me really in SimilarWeb is, of course, marketing channels. As I started as really performance marketing in general, working at different agencies and for different brands. And this is super interesting, is where you can see general trends for a category or for all top websites is what marketing channels driving the growth or decline for the whole category. And what we've seen over the past couple of years, let's just recap in general, is that if you look at different categories, is that display advertising was growing. In especially 2019 and the year before, we've seen quite a big growth in display advertising. And if you look at separate industries, it was quite a big increase. So one of the suggestions to many agencies and to many clients of mine, I would say, look at how much increased. See when that increase happened, maybe through November. If it's shopping category, are you actually putting as much budget as you should, looking at conversions for that category for a specific channel, and then showing them this is the return on investment you should expect, and then benchmark your performance against other ones to then maybe shuffle that budget more into one or the other channel, because you might be just behind the overall trend and category performance. So other people see this as a big opportunity. They're getting a lot of return investment. Maybe you should shift your strategy. So this is why, to me, it's not just a data point to look at and forget about. This is actually very actionable. So for 2020, I think that was a very important point. And as we can see here, display ads and display advertising in general has increased in 2019, but then it has decreased by 37% year over year in 2020. So it's almost 40% decline in 2020. One of the big things that happened is, of course, Amazon shutting down its display advertising and a lot of the paid acquisition channels. But on a lot of other data analysis we've done through the year, we've seen a lot of smaller players actually picking up that traffic and then investing a lot more because the CPC is a lot smaller. They can actually obtain those customers a lot easier because Amazon is not bidding for those terms, and they have such a good customer acquisition costs and conversion rates they can pay more. So it's one of the things that you should look at your category and see, okay, how display ads and marketing channels are performing, who are the main players reducing it, and who is winning during that change. So here you can see that there's a 40% decline in display advertising spend. And also on the paid traffic side, we see a decline in paid search. So I think this is also very interesting because display ads reduced by 40%, but then we can see only 15% decline in paid search. So it's not all of the paid channels has declined in the same proportion. It's mostly display ads. And what we've seen in general is that display ads are not becoming a bit less important to a lot of companies, and they're shifting to something else. And it's not only based on budget, but they also see a lot of return investment from other very important channels and referrals. So it's a lot of affiliate partnerships that are a lot of customers moving into. So if you just look at these marketing channels in different months and data for months, you can also see that referrals had increased so much during November and October before the shopping season. And we've done a webinar with Awin, who've seen this trend growing so much, who is one of the biggest affiliates, if not the biggest affiliate company there. And we see the shift is actually going from display advertising, where you can just get a lot of brand awareness, to the affiliates where you pay mostly for conversions or traffic that brings more value to you as a company or a brand. So this is one of the trends to really look into. And with our SimilarWeb tool, is also really easy to do affiliate research and referral research. Is if you put your brand against the competition, you can see every single website that sends traffic to your competition, but not to you, or your losses, which ones are sending more to them, but not to you. And it's so easy to come up with 10 the most valuable affiliate partnerships that you can get through them. So it's very simple to do, and it's extremely actionable. It's probably one of the strongest use cases for our tool because it's so simple and so valuable. Most big agencies use us for this research and get amazing results. So, and other things that we see is social. So even though we see a lot of interesting things about social, but in general we see a decline in traffic, the thing with this is that there's also dark social referrals that a lot of people cannot track, and it's very difficult to understand if someone's sharing on social, but you're getting actual traffic from a social platform. So it's also, even though we see decline in general social traffic, it might not be as relevant to the overall social importance. Social is still extremely important. And then email is in decline in general, but people were calling email dead for a long time. We see its decline in overall traffic, but it's definitely still there, even though the decline is significant, especially through a couple of years. And organic search, we see direct is growing a lot, and organic search basically growing last year. So even though direct and organic search are similar type of marketing channels, because indirect is customers, of course, who know you, they either bookmark you or they go directly to your website by typing in autofilling the result if you just type in your browser. Organic search also includes branded terms, so that's why we see such a big amount and the increase overall. But organic search is always really important in general. So I don't think I think it's really here to stay, with Google becoming more efficient and better is actually sending the right results to your websites. It's definitely something you need to look into. There are a lot of trends in organic search is happening right now. One of the things we're going to do next month is actually evolution of search webinar. We're going to look at overall traffic from search and what is going. Does it go to websites? Is the no-click search increasing over time based on a lot of searches during the last 3 years? So it's something to definitely understand more and dig in deeper. Is your performance organic search and what is going in general? So this is most from marketing channels, and let's go to the last section, and it's based on for travel. I think a webinar on digital trends is really not that good if you don't include something about travel in 2020, as it has seen a decline. And what is really the most interesting to me in travel right now is there a recovery, and which parts of travel actually decline the most? So on SimilarWeb, really what you can do based on travel is to look at year-over-year global traffic by sector. So you can look at car rentals, ground transportation, lodging, and air travel, and which ones have seen the biggest decline and fastest recovery back. So as you can see, during April, most of the countries started to have lockdowns in any kind of travel. Really, almost every single one of them declined by almost 80%. I think it's like 70% in general on average. So it's a huge decline and very, very, very fast decline. But what is interesting, we've basically seen a V-shaped recovery in most of these sectors, but the fastest one is car rentals. And we'll talk about why. And then we can see lodging and air travel. So air travel is still slow because so many international travels are really restricted and you cannot travel to many places. But lodging, because you can still travel inside our countries in a lot of them, we can see quite a fast recovery. And then it's similar for car rentals. It's because domestic travel is still available in many countries. And it's picking up a lot faster because you have no option to go somewhere else. You have to go somewhere in your country. And this is the choice I took, actually. Instead of going to a different country like Croatia from London where I live, I started going to UK places. Like we have some mountains in UK that I would never actually personally go for, because you can actually fly faster to France and go to Alps than go somewhere in UK. But because you cannot, and it's so difficult with lockdowns, domestic travel was performing a lot better and returning to normal levels a lot faster. And this is what we can see from this chart is actually recovery. So April traffic versus July in 2020, and which ones were recovering the fastest. So we see domestic travel recovering so much faster in general than international. And then from international, we see also domestic ones so much more. So you can also understand that from the US, you see so many more people actually booking to domestic destinations, to like very close by destinations that they can get a car and just drive to, because they don't have the option. And what we've seen in general is that 93% of US bookings in 2020 were domestic compared to 82% in 2019. So it's just a general trend that is very understandable from what is happening in the world. And then we have year-over-year regional lodging booking trends. So where we see the biggest increase in decline in terms of all of the countries. So Australia, New Zealand, United States, Latin America, Asia Pacific, Africa, and Middle East, and Europe. So what we see from here, from this graph, is again, a very similar trend, but then we see additional declines during other restrictions. So when countries reimpose lockdowns, we see a decline as well. And what we see here in the first decline is everyone imposing the first lockdown. And the recovery is fast, but once you do more lockdowns, it actually decreases really fast. And even though now we are basically recovered in many countries, it's still minus 25%. I think the best performing one, which is Asia Pacific and actually Australia and New Zealand right here. So what is interesting from here is that Latin America had the smoothest increase in the performance. So due to their lack of lockdowns, a lot of people were going there. I went to Brazil just for New Year's and Christmas. So you've seen the V-shaped recovery being very smooth without them imposing additional lockdowns. So this really shows you the performance is mostly based on how lockdowns and all those initiatives to stop COVID were imposed.